Hey friends, welcome back to another episode of Crazy Enough. If you're here, you're either already on the path of building something big or you're thinking about it. Either way, this episode is for you. Because today, we're diving into something that doesn't get talked about nearly enough when it comes to entrepreneurship, content creation, or chasing a dream. What am I talking about? I'm talking about your why, your persistence, and your consistency. And how those three, when they're aligned, can completely change the trajectory of your life. You see, most people, they don't fail because they lacked talent or resources or opportunity. Most people fail because they gave up too soon. So today, let's dig in. And I'm going to start with a little backstory. Because if you've been listening since the start, you know that last week I introduced the podcast, but I didn't really introduce me. So here's the short version. I'm Mary. I was born and raised in California, and I started Salt and Pepper Gifts, a gifting and packaging company, in my apartment in Hollywood. And from my apartment, we moved to a garage and finally to a warehouse. And that first warehouse, it was so ugly. We're talking puke green walls, no air conditioning, and not exactly the safest neighborhood. But it's what we could afford. Barely. But I also just knew that we had to get out of the garage because my business was completely taking over my house. And after 2 years in that puke green warehouse, we moved to a warehouse in downtown LA. And at the time, it felt like the dream. It had polished concrete floors, there was air conditioning. And listen, unless you've been through the grind, you don't realize how pure gold those things feel once you have them again. So we started in one space and then we took over another until we pretty much had the entire fifth floor. Not all of it, but close. And then I decided it was time to level up again. So we moved into this massive warehouse in Torrance. It was 12,000 square feet. It felt surreal. Like, who the F am I? Did I really build this? Crazy enough, I did. And then, we were there for, I don't know, I want to say like 6 months, 8 months, something along those lines. And then the betrayal happened. And when I say betrayal, I mean it was over $1 million in revenue. And just like that, it was gone. As a business, we almost collapsed. And the story, it's so wild, it's so far out there that it deserves its own episode. You won't believe it. So you'll have to stay tuned for when that one drops. But on a side note, I actually think this kind of betrayal or event is really a rite of passage in entrepreneurship. I think it happens to so many of us, but no one really talks about it. It was such an awful time, right, in my life. But today, I'm so thankful that it happened because it forced me to do the self-work. It forced me to step back and it forced me to change a few things. And during that time is also when I started a candle line called Noon Candles. And truthfully, it was a part of my healing process. It took me 2 years to bring the idea to life because every detail was intentional. The line has 12 candles, which is a nod to noon, and each candle is a stage in the entrepreneurial journey. After years of designing packaging and creating gifts and working on the most incredible projects, I wanted to make something for myself. And I didn't just want to launch another candle line. I wanted something meaningful. So I took my time, a long time, to work through the ideas until everything connected. And here's how it ties into this podcast. So Noon Candles, it has 12 candles, one for each hour on the clock. And each candle name represents a stage in the entrepreneurial journey. And every week on Crazy Enough, we're going to have real stories and real conversations. So guests will choose a candle name, the word that resonates with them the most, and then they'll pick a topic underneath that word. And that's how each episode will take shape every single week until we go full circle all the way around the clock. How cool is that? Okay, so now that you understand the foundation and know a little bit more about my backstory, let's walk through them. The candles. So the first candle in our collection is voice, because if you want change, you have to start using your voice. And for me, voice began when I started speaking up in rooms where I was the smallest player. I started asking for bigger projects. I started saying no when a client's budget didn't match the value that I brought. Your voice is your leverage. And the sooner you find it, the faster everything else shifts. And what I love the most about this line that I created is I think that it's relatable to any event, to any story or circumstance. It doesn't have to be about entrepreneurship. Okay. So our second candle is onward. And onward is about letting go. It's about moving on, even when it hurts. For me, I had to let go of people that I thought would be in my life forever. I had to let go of certain ways of working. I had to let go of perfection. It was really hard, but onward is actually really where the growth is. And then there's faith. Faith is trusting the process when the path isn't clear. When I had months where payroll felt impossible, faith is what kept me from shutting the doors. I had faith that I could figure it out. Faith isn't passive, it's active. It's showing up when you can't see the results yet. And then there's mirror. Mirror is self-reflection. And I think we can all agree that self-reflection is oftentimes uncomfortable. I didn't like what I saw at first. I was a leader who avoided hard conversations, who tied her worth to her revenue, who didn't make space for herself. But the mirror is where the change starts. And then there's strength. Strength isn't about never breaking. It's about getting back up every single time you fall. My strength has been tested more times than I can count, but each time I've gotten better at protecting my peace and setting my boundaries. And then there's time. And I place this one at the halfway point for a reason, because it's when the clock strikes 6. It's also a reminder that change takes time. Building a dream is slow. It's steady work. And if you rush it, you rob yourself of the lessons. And then there's dream. So once you've done the self-work, you can start to dream again. And for me, dream was about picturing life beyond survival mode. It was imagining a business that ran without me having to grind 24/7. And then there's vision, because dream is the spark, but the vision is the blueprint. Vision is when you get clear on what you want your life and work to look like. And then you start making decisions that align with that picture. And then there's belief, because belief is really what bridges the vision and the action. So I had to believe I could rebuild after losing almost everything, because without belief, every step feels so heavy. And then there's bold. Bold is about stepping forward even when you're terrified. And then we have unity, which is when you live boldly, I believe that you attract your people, your tribe. So unity is community. It's the clients, the collaborators, and it's the supporters. It's the people who want to see you win. And then there's infinite, and it's where the journey ends and begins. Infinite is about limitless possibilities. It's realizing there's always another door, another idea, another way forward. All right, so to recap all of the candles, because I know that was a lot, there's voice, which is where the change begins. There's onward, which is moving forward even when the path is foggy. There's faith, which is trusting the process when nothing is guaranteed. There's mirror, which is the uncomfortable work of looking inward. There's strength, which is the grit to keep going. There's time, and that's realizing that growth isn't instant. There's dream, which is reopening your imagination. There's vision, which is shaping that dream into a plan. There's believe, which is deciding it's all possible. Bold, stepping forward with confidence. Unity, the magic of community. Infinite, which is the finale. And this candle line is my why. And this podcast is an extension of it. It's a space to inspire, to encourage, and to challenge others to take their leap. It's a map, and it's a reminder that the journey takes time, patience, and persistence. So when people look at where I am now, the business, the clients, the podcast, it's easy for them to think it happened quickly. But what they don't see is that each candle, each stage represents years of work, mistakes, lessons, and moments where I almost gave up. And that's why I want to talk about the myth of overnight success. Because if you only see the end result, you'll assume it was easy. And that assumption can kill your own momentum before you even get started. I think we've all seen it, right? The flashy stories on Instagram, the I made $100,000 in 30 days, the YouTube thumbnails, the highlight reels. And it's easy to think, well, I don't know, they must have it all figured out. I must be doing something wrong. But what you don't see is the years of unseen work, the sleepless nights, the flop launches, the learning curves. You see, social media makes success look instant, but real, meaningful success, I think it comes from staying in the game long enough to earn it. Which then leads me to ask, why do most people quit? I've seen this over and over again. Someone wants to start something, a business, a project, a new chapter. They have this vision, this dream, and they're fired up for about 2 weeks. And then reality hits. They realize no one's here to tell them what to do, that they have to figure this all out on their own. And they're like, wait, I have to take action like every single day? And then the stories creep in. This is too hard. Maybe I'm not cut out for this. I don't have time. I'm too busy. I'm not ready. So they stop, right? They go back to what's comfortable and to a story they've told themselves for years, that they're not that kind of person, they're not an entrepreneur, or some kind of story that makes them feel comfortable. And so I've always wondered, what is it that separates the people who give up from the people who keep going? I don't think that it's luck. I don't think that it's talent. I don't even think that it's timing. I think it's knowing their why, and it's staying rooted in it. It's understanding that motivation fades, but what will carry you through is the discipline. And it's about reverse engineering your goals so that they're achievable, sustainable, and aligned with the life that you want. Because wanting the big goal isn't enough. You've got to break it down. Otherwise, it's just a fantasy. So right now, one of my biggest goals is to get my business in a position where we have complete financial breathing room. And when I say breathing room, I mean margin. Not just making payroll, not just covering the rent, but actually having the space to make decisions from a place of confidence instead of panic. So that means clearing certain debts, building reserves, and making sure that if the unexpected expense comes, we're ready. And this isn't just about numbers on a spreadsheet. This is about freedom. Because when you have a financial cushion, you can say yes to the opportunities and you can say no to the clients who aren't a fit without that fear of, what if we can't make ends meet next month? You see, one of the things that happened to me, and it was a while back, is I had the bank that we were banking with reduce the access to a line of credit. And even though we were in good standing, what I didn't understand is that they could just change the terms. And so overnight, they just called the loan. It was another huge wake up call. Not because we couldn't survive it, but because I realized how vulnerable we were if someone else controlled our safety net. So I sat down, I ran the numbers, and I looked at what's our average monthly revenue, what's our overhead, our rent, our payroll, the materials, the personal expenses, and what's left over. And how much of that can I direct towards strengthening the business without burning myself out? I even looked at the timing of the biggest expenses and I restructured payment cycles so that the cash flow was smoother. I started thinking of it like building a fortress, brick by brick, instead of running around with buckets of water every time there was a leak. You see, I wasn't just building the business, right? I'm also building the life that I want in the process. And here's where I think so many entrepreneurs get stuck. They're obsessed with the number, the launch, the next deal, and they forget to ask, does this actually lead to the life I want? And I learned this the hard way. There was a time, right, when my business looked amazing from the outside. The big clients, the big projects, the beautiful photos on Instagram. But my personal life, it was thin. And I was tired all the time. I missed family events. I basically ate dinner standing up. And if you had asked me back then, what's your why? I probably would have said something about providing for my family or building my dream. But if the thing you're building costs you the very life you're building it for, it's not really your dream anymore. So now what I do is I run every goal through a set of filters. Does this give me freedom? Does it give me time with my family? Does it give me the space to rest, to travel, and to create without pressure? If not, I pivot. Because if you want to build something big, You have to start by doing the small things consistently, because the small things, they build trust. And the trust, it builds belief. And the belief, it builds momentum. And that momentum is what carries you through the days when it's not exciting anymore. Because, spoiler alert, there will be those days. So, another thing that I do is I set goals, right? But I do it for different increments. So, I do 6 months goals, 1 year goals. And with each of those goals, they're enough to stretch me, but not so much that I disconnect from the action. And then what I do is I reverse engineer that goal. So, for example, if my 6 month goal was to have $100,000 in reserves, I don't just write that number on a whiteboard and hope for the best. I break it down. What does that mean per month, per week? What adjustments do we need to make to our expenses or our offers? And then I look at my calendar and I ask, where am I spending my time? And is that aligned with this goal? And then I make the cuts, even if they're uncomfortable. Because the truth is, discipline is the ultimate form of self-trust. All right, so let's put this all together because we talked about a lot of different things today. So let's recap. If you want to build something that lasts, you've got to know your why. You have to be persistent even when it's hard. You have to be consistent even when it's boring. And you have to structure your goals so that they align with the life that you want. And if you don't have that all figured out yet, that's okay. I didn't either, and I'm still figuring it out. I'm 40 years old. I'm 10 years into entrepreneurship. And honestly, I'm really just starting to get this stuff. So give yourself some grace, but don't give yourself excuses. Start small, do the thing today, do it again tomorrow, and in 6 months, look back and see what's changed. So here's my challenge to you guys. I want you guys to pick one goal. I want you to reverse engineer it. I want you to write down your why. And I want you to commit to showing up every day, because that's how you win. That's how you trust yourself again. That's how you prove you're crazy enough to make it happen. Thanks for listening. And if this episode spoke to you, share it with a friend, please, and let me know your why. And remember, this journey isn't about speed. It's about showing up again and again, because what you want is worth it. Until next time, stay bold, stay focused, and stay crazy enough.